She had no choice but to hide her pregnancy from her narcissistic billionaire CEO ex. What happened next shocked everyone. "You're nothing without me, Mia. Don't you forget that." Those words echoed in Mia Reynolds' mind as she pressed her hand against her growing belly, watching the morning news coverage of her ex-boyfriend's latest business triumph. Ryder Cross, billionaire CEO of Cross Industries, stood confidently at the podium discussing his company's record-breaking quarter. He looked exactly the same, devastatingly handsome, completely in control, and utterly unaware that somewhere across the country, the woman he discarded 8 months ago was carrying his twins. The irony wasn't lost on her. The man who had called her replaceable and worthless had no idea that his DNA was creating 2 tiny lives inside the woman he destroyed. Have you ever had to make an impossible choice between protecting yourself and telling someone life-changing news? Have you ever feared that revealing the truth would put you and your children in danger? This is the story of a woman who chose her children's safety over their father's right to know, and what happened when that secret was finally exposed. But what Mia didn't know was that discovering he had children would transform Ryder Cross in ways no one could have predicted. Stay with me to find out whether people can truly change, and if some betrayals can ever be forgiven. If you believe in protecting what matters most, hit that like button and let me know in the comments. 8 months earlier, the sound of shattering glass still echoed in Mia's ears as she stood in the wreckage of what had once been Ryder Cross's pristine penthouse living room. Her hands shook as she stared at the fragments of the crystal vase she'd given him for his birthday, the same vase he'd just hurled against the wall in a fit of rage. "Look what you made me do." Ryder's voice was cold fury, his gray eyes blazing with the kind of controlled violence that had become increasingly frequent over their 18-month relationship. "This is exactly the kind of dramatic nonsense I can't stand about you. I made you throw something at the wall." Mia's voice was steady despite the terror coursing through her veins. "I asked you a simple question about why you canceled our dinner plans again." "Simple question?" Ryder's laugh was bitter and sharp. "You interrogated me like some jealous, clingy girlfriend. Do you know who I am? Do you understand what I do? I don't answer to anyone, especially not some freelance graphic designer who should be grateful I even look at her." The words hit Mia like physical blows, but she'd heard variations of them so many times over the past 6 months that they'd almost lost their power to hurt. "Almost. Grateful?" she repeated quietly. "I should be grateful for a relationship where my boyfriend screams at me for asking about dinner plans. You should be grateful that someone like me chose someone like you." Ryder moved closer, his presence intimidating in the way he'd perfected in boardrooms and business negotiations. "You were nobody when I met you. A struggling artist working out of a coffee shop. I gave you a life, Mia. I gave you everything. You gave me expensive things. That's not the same as giving me a life. Don't be ungrateful. It's ugly on you." Mia looked around the penthouse that had never felt like home despite the months she'd spent here. Everything was perfectly curated, coldly beautiful, designed to impress rather than comfort. Like the man who owned it. "I'm not ungrateful, Ryder. I'm tired." "Tired of what?" "Tired of being taken care of? Tired of wearing designer clothes and living in luxury? Tired of being envied by every woman in the city? Tired of walking on eggshells? Tired of being afraid to ask questions or express opinions? Tired of feeling like I'm disappearing into someone else's idea of who I should be?" Ryder's expression shifted, his anger transforming into something colder and more calculated. "If you're so unhappy, maybe you should think about whether this relationship is right for you." The threat was clear, and they both knew it. This was how their fights always ended, with Ryder putting the relationship on the line, forcing Mia to choose between her dignity and her love for him. For 18 months, she'd chosen him. She'd apologized, backed down, minimized her own needs to keep the peace. She'd told herself that his anger came from stress, that his controlling behavior was just protectiveness, that his cruel words were spoken in moments of passion that didn't reflect his true feelings. But standing in that destroyed living room, looking at the man she'd thought she loved, Mia finally saw clearly. This wasn't love. This was ownership, and she was tired of being owned. "You're right," she said quietly. "I should think about whether this relationship is right for me. Meaning I think we should break up." For a moment, Ryder looked genuinely shocked. In all their fights, Mia had never been the one to suggest ending things. She'd always been the one fighting to hold them together, to make it work, to prove she was worthy of his love. You're breaking up with me? His tone suggested the very idea was absurd. Yes. Do you have any idea what you're throwing away? Any concept of what your life will be like without me? Mia thought about that question seriously. Without Ryder, she'd go back to her small apartment, her modest freelance income, her quiet life that didn't involve designer clothes or exclusive restaurants or the constant tension of trying to please someone who couldn't be pleased. I think it'll be peaceful, she said honestly. Ryder's face flushed with anger at her calm response. Peaceful? You'll be nobody again. A failed artist living paycheck to paycheck, aging out of relevance with nothing to show for it. Maybe. But I'll be myself. Yourself isn't enough, Mia. It was never enough. That's why you needed me. No, Ryder. That's why you wanted me to think I needed you. The truth of her words hung in the air between them. For 18 months, Ryder had systematically undermined her confidence, isolated her from friends, made her dependent on his approval and validation. But standing there, finally seeing the relationship clearly, Mia felt something she hadn't experienced in months, her own strength. You'll regret this, Ryder said, his voice low and threatening. You'll realize what you've lost, and you'll come crawling back. But I won't be available. There are a dozen women who would kill to be in your position. Then I hope you'll be very happy with one of them. I will be. Because unlike you, they understand what they're being offered. Mia gathered her purse and the few personal items she kept at the penthouse. I'll come by this weekend to get the rest of my things. Don't bother. I'll have everything sent to your pathetic little apartment. I don't want any reminders of this mistake. As Mia walked toward the elevator, Ryder called after her one last time. You're nothing without me, Mia. Don't you forget that. The elevator doors closed on his words, and Mia leaned against the wall, feeling simultaneously hollow and free. She'd just walked away from the most intense relationship of her life, from a man who had made her feel both more beautiful and more worthless than she'd ever thought possible. It would take her weeks to realize she'd also walked away from the best decision she'd ever make. 3 weeks later, Mia stared at the positive pregnancy test in her hands, her mind reeling with the implications. She was pregnant. After 18 months of being careful, of using protection, of never wanting to complicate their already volatile relationship with the question of children, she was carrying Ryder Cross's baby. Oh God, she whispered to her empty apartment. Oh God, oh God, oh God. Her first instinct was to call him. Despite everything that had happened, despite the cruel way their relationship had ended, this was his child too. He had a right to know. But then she remembered his words. You're nothing without me. She remembered the broken vase, the cold calculation in his eyes when he'd threatened to leave her, the way he'd made her feel small and worthless and dependent. What would happen if she told him about the pregnancy? Mia had no illusions about Ryder's character. He was a narcissist who viewed people as extensions of himself, possessions to be controlled and managed. If she told him about the baby, he would try to control this too. He would use the child as leverage, as a way to force her back into his life on his terms. And if she refused? If she tried to maintain boundaries, to co-parent from a distance? Ryder Cross was worth over $1 billion. He had teams of lawyers, unlimited resources, and a pathological need to win at all costs. He could destroy her in court, take her child away, make her life a living hell until she submitted to his will. I can't, she said aloud. I can't tell him. The decision felt both terrifying and clear. She would disappear, change her phone number, move away, start. I need help, she said without preamble when Lauren answered the phone. What kind of help? Are you okay? I'm pregnant. Lauren was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Is it Ryder's? Yes. Have you told him? No. And I'm not going to. Mia, whatever problems you two had, he has a right to know about his child. Does he? Does someone who spent 18 months emotionally abusing me have the right to do the same thing to my baby? Lauren sighed. She'd never liked Ryder, had seen through his charm to the controlling nature beneath. What do you need from me? I want to move to Portland. Start over. Can I stay with you until I find my own place? Of course. But Mia, are you sure about this? Once you disappear, once you have this baby in secret, there's no going back. I know. But Lauren, you didn't see what he was like. The anger, the need to control everything. I can't raise a child in that environment. Then come home. We'll figure it out together. 2 weeks later, Mia Reynolds ceased to exist in New York City. She broke her lease, closed her business accounts, changed her phone number, and drove across the country to start over as someone Ryder Cross would never be able to find. It was the second best decision she'd ever make. 9 months later, Portland, Oregon. The pain was overwhelming, consuming, unlike anything Mia had ever experienced. She gripped Lauren's hand as another contraction tore through her body, her breathing ragged and desperate. "You're doing great," Lauren said, her voice steady and encouraging. "Dr. Martinez says it won't be much longer." I can't do this," Mia gasped between contractions. "It's too much." "Yes, you can. You're the strongest person I know, and these babies need you to be strong for them." Babies. Plural. The ultrasound at 20 weeks had revealed what the earlier appointments had missed. She was carrying twins. 2 babies who would never know their father, who would grow up believing their mother was all they needed. "Okay, Mia," Dr. Martinez called from the foot of the bed. "I can see the first baby's head. On your next contraction, I need you to push as hard as you can." The next few minutes blurred together in a haze of pain, effort, and Lauren's constant encouragement. Then suddenly, impossibly, there was a sound, a sharp, indignant cry that cut through everything else. "It's a girl," Dr. Martinez announced, holding up a tiny, perfect baby covered in blood and amniotic fluid. "And she's got quite a set of lungs." Mia began crying at the sound of her daughter's voice, overwhelmed by love so fierce and immediate it took her breath away. This was her baby, her daughter, the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. "Emma," she whispered through her tears. "Her name is Emma." "One more, Mia," Dr. Martinez said gently. "Your son is ready to meet you." 15 minutes later, Lucas Cross, though he would carry the last name Reynolds, entered the world with less drama than his sister, but just as much perfection. He was quiet where Emma was vocal, contemplative where she was demanding, but both babies had the same dark hair and strong features that marked them unmistakably as their father's children. "They're perfect," Lauren whispered, tears streaming down her face as she looked at her new niece and nephew. "Absolutely perfect." Mia held her children for the first time, one in each arm, and felt a completeness she'd never known was possible. These babies were hers, created from love that had turned toxic, but innocent of their father's flaws. They would know only her love, her protection, her dedication to giving them the childhood she'd never had. "I'm going to take such good care of you," she promised them softly. "You're going to be so loved, so safe, so happy. I promise." As she spoke, Emma opened her eyes, gray eyes that were exactly like her father's, and seemed to look directly at Mia with an awareness that was probably impossible in a newborn, but felt completely real. "I see him in them," Lauren said quietly. "Are you sure you can handle that?" Mia looked down at Lucas, who had Ryder's strong jaw and determined chin, then at Emma, whose gray eyes held intelligence and fire that reminded her of everything she'd once loved about their father. "They're not him," she said firmly. "They're mine, and I'm going to make sure they become everything he could never be." 2 years later, Mia pushed the double stroller through the corridors of Dornbecher Children's Hospital, her heart heavy with worry about Emma's persistent cough that had brought them here for tests. At 2 years old, the twins were walking, talking, and displaying personalities that were both distinct and wonderful. Emma was the leader, fearless and determined, quick to laugh, but also quick to stand up for herself and her brother. Lucas was gentler, more thoughtful, with an innate kindness that made him beloved by everyone he met. Both children were healthy, happy, and completely unaware that their lives were about to change forever. "Mama, why we here?" Emma asked, her vocabulary impressive for her age. "Just to make sure your cough gets better, sweetheart. The doctors want to take a look at you." "I'm not sick," Emma declared with typical stubborn independence. "I know, but we want to keep you healthy, don't we?" Lucas, who had been quiet during the walk from the parking garage, suddenly tugged on Mia's jacket. "Mama, that man looking at us." Mia glanced up from adjusting Emma's blanket and felt her blood turn to ice. Across the hospital lobby, standing near the information desk in an expensive suit that looked out of place in the pediatric hospital, was Ryder Cross. He was staring at them with an expression of shocked recognition, his gray eyes, Emma's eyes, moving from Mia's face to the children in the stroller. But she was frozen, caught between the past she'd fled and the present she'd built, while her children looked between her and the stranger who was walking toward them with determined purpose. Mia. His voice was exactly the same, deep, controlled, carrying the authority of a man accustomed to being obeyed. But there was something else in it now, something that sounded almost like wonder. "Ryder." Her voice came out as barely a whisper. He stopped a few feet away from the stroller, close enough to see the children clearly, but far enough to avoid crowding them. Emma and Lucas stared up at him with typical toddler curiosity, unafraid but cautious. "These are—" He couldn't seem to finish the sentence. "Yes. They're mine." It wasn't a question. "They're mine," Mia corrected, her protective instincts flaring. "I'm their mother." "How old are they?" "2." Ryder did the math quickly, his business mind calculating dates and timelines. "You were pregnant when you left me. I didn't know until 3 weeks after we broke up. And you never told me." His voice was flat, emotionless, but Mia could see the storm building behind his eyes. "No. You've hidden my children from me for 2 years. I've protected my children for 2 years." The distinction was important, and they both knew it. Ryder looked down at Emma and Lucas again, taking in their dark hair, their strong features, the unmistakable resemblance that marked them as his. "What are their names?" Mia hesitated, then decided honesty was her only option now that her secret was exposed. "Emma and Lucas. Emma and Lucas Cross. Emma and Lucas Reynolds. They have my last name." Something flickered across Ryder's face, pain, perhaps, or anger at this final rejection of his claim to them. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "Not here, not with them, but we need to talk. There's nothing to discuss. I have children, Mia. Children I've never met, never held, never been allowed to know. There's everything to discuss." Emma, who had been listening to this conversation with the intense focus that characterized her, suddenly spoke up. "Mama, who is man?" Mia looked down at her daughter, then at Lucas, who was watching the adults with worried eyes. These children had never needed protection more than they did right now. "Just someone Mama used to know, sweetheart." "I'm your daddy," Ryder said quietly, and Mia's blood ran cold. "Ryder, don't. They have a right to know who I am. They have a right to be protected from someone who might hurt them. I would never hurt them. You said you'd never hurt me either." The words hung in the air between them, carrying the weight of 18 months of emotional abuse, manipulation, and control. Ryder's jaw tightened, but he didn't deny the truth of her statement. "I want to see them," he said finally. "I want to be part of their lives. That's not going to happen. You can't keep me away from my children forever. Watch me." Mia turned the stroller toward the elevator, her heart pounding with adrenaline and fear. But Ryder's voice stopped her. "I won't fight you in court, Mia. Not yet. But this isn't over." She looked back at him, seeing something in his expression she'd never seen before, genuine emotion, raw and unguarded. "I have children," he said softly, as if he was still trying to process the reality. "I have a son and a daughter." "No," Mia replied firmly. "I have a son and a daughter. You have nothing." As the elevator doors closed, separating her from the man who had once controlled her life, Mia felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. For 2 years, she'd built a safe, happy life for her children. Now Ryder knew they existed, and everything was about to change. The only question was whether the man she'd seen in that hospital lobby was the same narcissistic controller she'd fled, or if discovering he had children might actually change him in ways she'd never thought possible. Tom would tell. But first, she had to protect Emma and Lucas from whatever storm was coming. That night, Ryder Cross stood in his penthouse office, staring out at the Portland skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows, but seeing nothing except 2 small faces that looked exactly like his own childhood photos. His hands shook as he poured himself a scotch, his third since returning from the hospital, and tried to process what had just happened. He had children. 2 beautiful, healthy children who had been walking and talking and living their lives for 2 years without him ever knowing they existed. "I have a son and a daughter," he said aloud to the empty room, testing how the words felt. They sounded foreign, impossible, but also somehow right in a way that nothing in his life had felt right for a very long time. His phone buzzed with text messages from his assistant, reminders about tomorrow's board meeting and the following week's investor presentations. The business that had once consumed his every waking moment suddenly felt trivial, meaningless compared to the revelation that he was a father. Ryder had come to Portland for a business acquisition, a small tech company that Cross Industries wanted to absorb. He'd planned to be in the city for 3 days, handle the negotiations, and return to New York. Instead, he discovered that the woman who had walked out of his life nearly 3 years ago had been raising his children in secret. The anger hit him first, hot and familiar. How dare she keep this from him? How dare she rob him of 2 years of their lives? He had rights, legal standing, resources that could crush her in any court battle. But as the initial fury faded, other emotions began to surface. Emotions Ryder wasn't accustomed to feeling, let alone acknowledging. Regret, pain, a hollow ache in his chest that had nothing to do with anger and everything to do with loss. He thought about Emma's gray eyes, his eyes, looking up at him with innocent curiosity. He thought about Lucas's quiet watchfulness, the way the little boy had studied him as if trying to figure out whether he was safe or dangerous. "They don't know me," he whispered to the empty room. "My own children don't know who I am." The realization hit him like a physical blow. Those beautiful children had been in the world for 2 years, taking their first steps, saying their first words, celebrating birthdays and holidays, and he had missed all of it. Not because of distance or circumstance, but because the woman who had once loved him had been so afraid of who he was that she'd chosen to disappear rather than tell him about their existence. What kind of man inspired that level of fear? Ryder had always prided himself on being successful, powerful, in control. He ran a billion-dollar company, commanded respect in boardrooms around the world, and got whatever he wanted through a combination of intelligence, determination, and sheer force of will. But sitting in his office, thinking about Mia's words in the hospital, "I've protected my children for 2 years," he was forced to confront a truth he'd spent 3 years avoiding. He was the kind of man a woman felt she needed to protect her children from. 3 days later, Ryder had extended his stay in Portland indefinitely, much to his board's confusion and his assistant's frustration. He'd spent the past 72 hours having the twins followed by a private investigator, not to harass them, but to learn about their lives, their routines, their world. What he discovered both amazed and devastated him. Emma and Lucas Reynolds lived in a modest but comfortable duplex in a family-friendly neighborhood. They attended a highly rated daycare where they were beloved by teachers and fellow students alike. Emma was known for her artistic abilities and fierce independence, while Lucas was celebrated for his kindness and natural leadership among the younger children. Mia had built a successful freelance graphic design business, working primarily with local nonprofits and small businesses. She was active in the community, volunteering at the children's library and helping with neighborhood events. The three of them lived quietly but richly, with a close bond that was obvious to anyone who observed them. They were happy, complete, a perfect little family that didn't need him at all. The investigators' photos showed birthday parties, trips to the park, bedtime stories, and countless ordinary moments that made up a childhood. Moments Ryder had missed because Mia had been so certain he would harm their children that she'd chosen to raise them alone rather than give him a chance. She was right to protect them, he said aloud in his hotel room, staring at a photo of Lucas helping his sister feed ducks at a pond. "Look at what I was 3 years ago. Look at who I was. The man who had thrown a crystal vase against the wall because Mia had asked about dinner plans. The man who had called her worthless, replaceable, nothing. The man who had made the woman he claimed to love feel so small and afraid that she'd fled across the country to escape him. That man had no business being around children. That man would have tried to control and manipulate these beautiful beings the same way he'd controlled and manipulated their mother. But was he still that man? The next morning, Dr. Patterson, thank you for seeing me on such short notice. Dr. Eleanor Patterson was one of Portland's most respected therapists, specializing in narcissistic personality disorders and abusive relationship patterns. Ryder had never been to therapy in his life, had always viewed it as a weakness, an admission of failure. Now, sitting in her comfortable office with its warm lighting and strategically placed tissues, he felt more vulnerable than he had since childhood. "What brings you here today, Mr. Cross?" "I think I might be a narcissist." The words came out in a rush, as if he was afraid he'd lose the courage to say them if he hesitated. I think I might have emotionally abused someone I loved, and I need to understand if I can change. Dr. Patterson studied him with intelligent brown eyes, her expression neutral but not unkind. What makes you think you might be narcissistic? Ryder told her everything. About his relationship with Mia, the patterns of control and manipulation, the way he'd made her feel worthless for asking simple questions. He told her about the twins, about Mia's choice to hide them, about his growing realization that her fear had been completely justified. I've spent 3 years telling myself she was unstable, dramatic, that she left because she couldn't handle being with someone successful. But seeing her yesterday, seeing how afraid she was to let me near our children, I think I was the problem. What do you hope to accomplish through therapy? I want to change. I want to become someone who deserves to know his children. I want to understand why I behaved the way I did and make sure I never do it again. Change is possible, Mr. Cross, but it requires genuine commitment and the willingness to do very difficult emotional work. It means acknowledging truths about yourself that will be painful to face. I'm ready. We'll see. True narcissistic behavior stems from deep insecurity and trauma, often dating back to childhood. Are you prepared to explore those experiences? Ryder thought about his father, cold, demanding, never satisfied with anything Ryder accomplished. He thought about his mother, distant, more concerned with social status than emotional connection. He thought about growing up in a world where love was conditional, where worth was measured by achievement and appearance. Yes, I'm ready. 2 weeks later, the therapy sessions were brutal. Dr. Patterson guided Ryder through the painful process of examining his childhood, his learned behaviors, the ways he'd unconsciously replicated his parents' emotional unavailability and conditional love. Narcissistic behavior often develops as a defense mechanism, she explained during their 4th session. When a child learns that love must be earned through perfection, they develop a false self designed to meet those impossible standards. And the real self gets buried so deep that the person forgets it exists. They become addicted to external validation because they have no internal sense of worth. Ryder was beginning to understand the pattern. Every time Mia had challenged him, questioned him, or failed to provide the admiration he craved, he felt threatened at a core level. His angry responses hadn't been about her behavior. They'd been about his own desperate need to maintain the illusion of perfection that had become his identity. I made her responsible for my self-worth, he realized during their 5th session. When she didn't act like I was perfect, I punished her for it. And how did that punishment manifest? Anger, threats to leave, making her feel like she was lucky to have me, making her believe she was the problem. Ryder's voice was thick with shame. I was systematically destroying her self-esteem to protect my own ego. Recognition is the first step toward change. But Mr. Cross, I need you to understand something important. Even if you do the work to change, even if you become a genuinely healthy person, that doesn't entitle you to forgiveness from the people you hurt. I know. Do you? Because I sense that part of your motivation is winning back access to your children and possibly their mother. Change that's motivated by what you want to get rather than who you want to become rarely lasts. Ryder was quiet for a long moment, examining his motives honestly. You're right. Part of me is doing this because I want them back. But part of me is also doing it because I can't live with being the kind of person who would hurt his own children the way I hurt their mother. Hold on to that second part. That's where real change begins. 1 month after the hospital encounter, Mia was loading groceries into her car when she noticed the familiar figure standing across the parking lot. Ryder had been appearing at random moments over the past month, never approaching, never threatening, just there. Outside the daycare when she picked up the twins, at the coffee shop where she sometimes worked, in the grocery store parking lot. It should have felt like stalking, but something about his presence was different now. He kept his distance, never tried to interact with the children, never attempted to force conversations she didn't want to have. He just watched, as if he was trying to learn about their lives from a safe distance. Today, instead of pretending she didn't see him, Mia made a decision. She settled Emma and Lucas in their car seats, then walked across the parking lot to where Ryder stood beside his rental car. We need to talk, she said without preamble. I'd like that. Not here. Not with the kids around. There's a coffee shop on Burnside, grounds for change. Tomorrow at 7 p.m. I'll be there. And Ryder? Stop following us. It's scaring the children. He looked genuinely horrified at the suggestion. I would never want to scare them. I wanted to see them, to learn about their lives. From a distance, like a stalker. I'm sorry. I didn't think about how it would look from your perspective. The apology surprised her. The old writer never apologized, never acknowledged that his perspective might be flawed. 7 o'clock tomorrow. Don't be late. The coffee shop writer arrived 15 minutes early and chose a corner table where they could talk privately. When Mia walked in exactly at 7, he was struck by how different she looked from the woman he'd once known. There was a strength in her posture, a confidence in her movements that hadn't been there during their relationship. Motherhood had made her beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with physical appearance and everything to do with purpose. Thank you for meeting me, he said as she sat down across from him. I'm not here to be friendly, writer. I'm here because you're not going away, and I need to understand what you want. I want to know my children. Why? You never wanted children before. You said they would interfere with your career, your lifestyle. I was wrong about a lot of things. Mia studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation or calculated charm. Instead, she saw something that looked almost like vulnerability. What's changed? I'm in therapy, Mia. 3 times a week. I'm trying to understand why I treated you the way I did, why I was so controlling and cruel. Therapy. She said it like it was a foreign concept. I know it sounds ridiculous coming from me. The man who thought emotions were weakness and vulnerability was failure. But I can't keep living as the person I was. Because you want access to your children. Because I can't stand being the kind of person who would hurt his children the way I hurt their mother. The distinction was subtle but important, and Mia heard it. What has therapy taught you? Ryder was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. That I was emotionally abusive. That I used manipulation and control to manage my own insecurities. That I made you responsible for my self-worth and punished you when you couldn't fulfill that impossible role. Mia's breath caught. In 3 years, she'd never heard him acknowledge any responsibility for their relationship's toxicity. I was a narcissist, Mia. Probably still am, though I'm working on it. I turned you into a reflection of my own ego instead of loving you as a separate person with your own needs and desires. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to know that I understand why you left. I understand why you hid our children from me. And I want you to know that I'm trying to become someone who deserves to know them. Deserves. Mia's voice was sharp. You think doing some therapy sessions means you deserve access to my children? No. I think it means I'm starting the long process of earning that access. If it's possible. If you ever feel safe enough to let me try. Mia stared at him, searching for signs of the calculated charm that had once drawn her in. But Ryder's usual polished confidence was gone, replaced by something rawer and more uncertain. What exactly are you asking for? A chance to prove I've changed. Supervised visits, maybe. An opportunity to show Emma and Lucas that I'm safe, that I'm someone who could be a positive presence in their lives. And if I say no, then I respect that decision and continue working on myself in the hope that someday you might reconsider. You won't fight me in court? Use your money and lawyers to force visitation? No. Forcing my way into their lives would just be another form of the control that drove you away in the first place. Mia was quiet for a long time, studying Ryder's face and trying to reconcile this version of him with the man she'd fled from 3 years ago. I need time to think about this. Of course. And if I do decide to consider it, and I'm not saying I will, there would be conditions. Strict boundaries that you would have to respect without question. I understand. Do you? Because the moment you revert to your old controlling patterns, the moment you make me or the children feel unsafe, this ends. Forever. I understand. Mia stood to leave, then paused. Ryder? Why didn't you fight for me when I left? You could have tried to win me back, could have followed me then. Why now? Because then I thought you were the problem. I thought you were too dramatic, too needy, too demanding. I didn't realize I was the one who was broken. And now I know that you were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I destroyed it through my own selfishness and fear. As Mia walked away, Ryder sat alone in the coffee shop, hoping he'd said the right things, hoping she could see that his remorse was genuine. The old him would have been calculating how to manipulate her emotions, how to use her love for the children to get what he wanted. The man he was becoming just hoped he might be worthy of a second chance. Ryder is starting to change. Drop a comment if you think people can really transform themselves. 2 weeks later. The answer is yes. Mia's voice was steady over the phone, but Ryder could hear the nervousness underneath. But there are conditions. Name them. Supervised visits only. 1 hour, once a week, in a public place of my choosing. You don't get to be alone with them until I'm convinced you're safe. You don't get to take them anywhere without my explicit permission. And you don't get to make any parenting decisions. Agreed. If you're late, if you cancel, if you do anything that makes me uncomfortable, the visits stop. If you try to undermine my authority with them or turn them against me in any way, the visits stop. If you revert to any of your old controlling behaviors, the visits stop. I understand. Do you? Because these aren't suggestions, Ryder. These are non-negotiable terms. I understand, and I agree to all of them. Mia was quiet for a moment, and Ryder wondered if she was having second thoughts. Why are you doing this? He asked gently. Because they ask about their father. Not you specifically, because they don't know you exist, but the concept of having a daddy like other kids. And because I've been watching you for 2 months, and you seem different. I am different. We'll see. Saturday at 2 p.m., Laurelhurst Park by the playground. 1 hour. Should I bring anything? Gifts or toys or... No gifts. They don't need to think you're trying to buy their affection. Just bring yourself and be prepared to answer their questions honestly. After she hung up, Ryder sat in his hotel room, staring at his phone and trying to process what had just happened. In 3 days, he was going to meet his children. Really meet them, as their father instead of a stranger in a hospital lobby. The prospect was both thrilling and terrifying. Saturday, at Laurelhurst Park. Ryder had been sitting on a park bench for 20 minutes, watching other families play and trying to calm his nerves, when he saw them approaching. Mia pushed a double stroller with Emma and Lucas chattering excitedly about the playground equipment they could see ahead. They looked even more beautiful than he remembered. Emma wore a bright red coat that made her dark hair shine, while Lucas was bundled in blue with a stuffed dinosaur clutched in one small hand. They were taller now, more coordinated, clearly growing into themselves as individuals. "Mama, is that the man from the hospital?" Emma asked as they got closer. "Yes, sweetheart. His name is Ryder, and he wants to spend some time with you today." "Why?" Lucas asked with typical toddler directness. Mia looked at Ryder, giving him the chance to answer for himself. "Because you're my children," Ryder said gently, kneeling down to their eye level. "I'm your daddy, and I've been hoping to get to know you better." Emma studied him with those gray eyes that were so much like his own. "Where have you been?" The question hit harder than Ryder had expected. "I've been far away working, but I'm here now, and I hope we can spend time together." "Do you live with us now?" Lucas asked hopefully. "No, buddy. I live in a different city, but I'm going to visit whenever I can. Can we go play?" Emma was already eyeing the playground with interest. Mia nodded, and they walked toward the play area together. Ryder was struck by how naturally the children accepted his presence, how quickly they included him in their games. Emma demanded that he push her on the swings while Lucas showed him how high he could climb on the jungle gym. "Daddy, look," Emma called out, using the title as easily as if she'd been saying it her whole life. "I can swing really high." The word hit Ryder like a physical blow. "Daddy." This beautiful, fierce little girl was calling him daddy as if it was the most natural thing in the world. "You're very good at swinging," he managed, his voice thick with emotion. "I can do monkey bars too. Want to see?" For the next hour, Ryder was introduced to the wonderful, chaotic world of playing with toddlers. Emma was fearless and demanding, requiring constant attention and praise. Lucas was more cautious but equally engaging, asking thoughtful questions and offering to share his dinosaur. They were perfect, absolutely perfect children who deserved so much more than the father they'd been given. "Time to go," Mia announced as the hour ended. "No," Emma protested. "I want to play more." "We'll play again soon," Ryder promised, hoping it was true. "When?" Lucas asked. Ryder looked at Mia, who nodded slightly. "Next week, if your mama says it's okay." "Can we go to the zoo next time?" Emma asked excitedly. "We'll see," Mia said diplomatically. As they walked back to Mia's car, Lucas slipped his small hand into Ryder's without being asked. The gesture was so trusting, so innocent, that Ryder nearly broke down crying right there in the parking lot. "Bye, Daddy," Emma said as Mia buckled her into her car seat. "Bye, sweetheart. I'll see you soon." Promise. I promise. After they drove away, Ryder sat in his rental car for 20 minutes, overwhelmed by emotions he'd never experienced before. Love, yes, but also a fierce protectiveness that was entirely foreign to him. These children were his responsibility, his legacy, his chance to do something meaningful with his life. He couldn't screw this up. 3 months later, the visits had become routine. Every Saturday at 2 p.m., Ryder met Mia and the twins at various parks and playgrounds around Portland. The initial supervision had gradually relaxed as Mia observed his patience, consistency, and genuine care for the children's well-being. Emma had claimed him completely, demanding that he read her stories, admire her artwork, and listen to her elaborate explanations of everything from flowers to fire trucks. Lucas was more reserved but just as attached, often quietly taking Ryder's hand or leaning against him during their outings. "Daddy, why don't you live with us?" Emma asked one afternoon as they fed ducks at the pond. The question had been coming for weeks, and Ryder had been dreading it. "Because Mama and I aren't married anymore, sweetheart." "Why not?" "Because we had some problems that we couldn't fix back then." "Are the problems fixed now?" Lucas asked hopefully. Ryder glanced at Mia, who was watching the conversation with careful attention. "I'm working on fixing my problems. But it takes time to heal from being hurt." "Did you hurt Mama?" Emma's question was direct and devastating. "Yes, I did. And I'm very sorry about that." "Did you say sorry to her?" "Yes, but sometimes sorry isn't enough. Sometimes you have to prove that you've changed by being better for a long time." Emma considered this seriously. "How long?" "I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe a very long time. But you'll keep being our daddy. Always. No matter what happens with Mama and me, I'll always be your daddy, and I'll always love you." That evening, Mia called Ryder at his hotel. "You handled their questions well today." "Thank you. I've been dreading that conversation. They're going to ask more difficult questions as they get older. About why we broke up, why I left, why you weren't there when they were babies." "I know. I'll answer them honestly, in age-appropriate ways. Will you? Even when the honest answers make you look bad." Ryder was quiet for a moment. "Especially then. They deserve to know the truth about who their father was and who he's trying to become." "Ryder, can I ask you something?" "Anything. Do you still think about trying to get back together?" "Us, I mean." The question caught him off guard with its directness. "Every day? But I know that's not why I'm here. I'm here to be their father, not to win you back." "Good. Because the children are what matters. They need stability, consistency, and adults who put their needs first." "I understand." "Do you?" "Because there will be times when what's best for them conflicts with what you want. When you'll have to choose between your desires and their well-being." "I'll choose them. Every time." "I hope so. Because they're starting to love you, Ryder. And if you hurt them the way you hurt me." "I won't. I swear to you, I won't." 6 months after first supervised visit, the call came at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. Ryder was in his New York office, working late on a merger that should have consumed his full attention, when his phone rang with Mia's number. "Lucas is in the hospital," she said without preamble, her voice shaking with exhaustion and fear. "He has pneumonia. They're not sure how serious it is yet." Ryder was already reaching for his keys. "Which hospital?" "Dornbetcher." "But Ryder, you don't have to. I'm coming. I'll be on the next flight. You have your business to run. This isn't your responsibility." "He's my son. This is exactly my responsibility." Ryder caught a red-eye flight to Portland, arriving at the hospital 12 hours after Mia's call. He found her in the pediatric ward, sitting beside Lucas's bed while Emma slept curled up in a chair beside her. Lucas looked so small in the hospital bed, his breathing labored despite the oxygen mask. Mia looked exhausted, her eyes red-rimmed from crying and sleepless worry. "How is he?" Ryder asked quietly. "Better. The antibiotics are working, but it's going to be a few more days before we know for sure he's out of danger." "And Emma?" "Scared. She doesn't understand why Lucas can't come home." Ryder sat down in the empty chair on the other side of Lucas's bed, reaching out to gently touch his son's forehead. "Hey, buddy. Daddy's here." Lucas's eyes fluttered open, focusing on Ryder with relief. "Daddy came." "Of course I came. Where else would I be when you need me?" "I'm sick. I know. But the doctors are taking really good care of you, and you're going to get better soon. Will you stay?" Ryder looked at Mia, who nodded slightly. "I'll stay as long as you need me to, buddy." For the next 3 days, Ryder barely left the hospital. He brought Mia meals she was too worried to eat, entertained Emma when she got restless, and read stories to Lucas during his lucid moments. He slept in uncomfortable hospital chairs, wore the same clothes for days, and forgot about the merger that his board was probably panicking over. None of that mattered. His son was sick, and his family needed him. "You don't have to do this," Mia said on the second night, as they sat watching Lucas sleep. "Yes, I do. Your company will survive without me for a few days. This is more important. The old you would have sent flowers and a nanny and gone back to work. The old me was an idiot who didn't understand what actually mattered in life." On the fourth day, Lucas was discharged with a clean bill of health. As they prepared to leave the hospital, Emma wrapped her arms around Ryder's legs. "Thank you for staying with us, Daddy. Thank you for letting me stay, sweetheart. Will you come home with us?" Ryder looked at Mia, who was watching the exchange with an unreadable expression. "Not this time, Emma, but I'll see you very soon. Tomorrow, if Mama says it's okay." That evening, Mia called him at his hotel. "Thank you for dropping everything, for being there, for putting them first. They're my children too. I know, and for the first time, I really believe you understand what that means. Does that mean you trust me now?" "It means I'm starting to trust you. There's a difference. I'll take it." Mia is torn between protecting her children and giving Ryder a chance. What would you do in her situation? 1 year after first meeting. The birthday party was small, just Mia, the twins, Lauren, and a few of their closest friends. Emma and Lucas were turning 3, and they'd been talking about their party for weeks, planning games and discussing who would come. Ryder wasn't invited, and he understood why. This was their family celebration, and he was still an outsider trying to earn his place in their lives. But at 6 p.m., his phone rang. "Daddy." Emma's voice was excited and slightly muffled by what sounded like cake. "We had our party. Did you have fun, sweetheart?" "Yes. We had chocolate cake and played games and got presents." "That sounds wonderful. Mama said I could call you. She said it's important to share good things with people you love." The casual way Emma said, "people you love," made Ryder's throat tight with emotion. "I love you too, Emma. Both of you. Lucas wants to talk too." There was shuffling as the phone was passed to his son. "Hi, Daddy." "Hi, buddy. Happy birthday. I'm 3 now. I know. You're getting so big. Emma says you love us." "I do. Very much. Do you love Mama too?" The question was innocent but loaded with complications. "Your Mama is a very special person, Lucas. She's a wonderful mother and a good friend. But do you love her?" Ryder closed his eyes, thinking about Mia's strength, her dedication to their children, the way she'd protected them from his worst impulses while still giving him a chance to be their father. "Yes, I do love her. But loving someone doesn't always mean being with them." "Why not?" "Because sometimes people need time to heal from being hurt. And sometimes the best way to love someone is to give them space to be happy." "Are you happy, Daddy?" The question caught him off guard. "I'm happier than I've ever been, buddy. Because I get to be your and Emma's daddy." "Good. Mama says happiness is important." After they hung up, Ryder sat in his hotel room, thinking about how much his life had changed in the past year. He'd been commuting between New York and Portland every week, maintaining his business responsibilities while building a relationship with his children. It was exhausting, expensive, and completely worth it. His board had been pressuring him to make a decision, either move Cross Industries headquarters to Portland or step back from the daily operations. The company could survive with him as a more hands-off CEO, but it couldn't function with him constantly traveling. The choice should have been obvious. He'd built Cross Industries from nothing, turning it into a billion-dollar empire that employed thousands of people. It was his life's work, his identity, his greatest achievement. But sitting in that hotel room, listening to his 3-year-old children wish him happy birthday over the phone, Ryder realized that none of that mattered compared to being present for Emma and Lucas's childhood. 2 months later, "You're moving to Portland?" Mia's voice carried surprise and something that might have been concern. "I'm opening a West Coast headquarters here and transitioning to a less hands-on role with the company. I'll still travel for major deals and board meetings, but my primary residence will be Portland." "Why?" "Because I can't be a real father to Emma and Lucas from 3,000 miles away. Because I want to be available for school events and sick days and all the ordinary moments that make up their childhood." They were sitting in their usual coffee shop, having one of their monthly conversations about Ryder's role in the children's lives. Over the past year, these meetings had become less tense, more collaborative, as Mia gradually came to trust his commitment to their well-being. This is a huge decision, Ryder. You're essentially restructuring your entire life around being close to them. Yes. What if it doesn't work out? What if you get frustrated with the limitations of long-distance business management? What if you change your mind about wanting to be an involved father? Then I'll have made a mistake. But the only mistake I'm certain I'd regret is missing any more of their childhood. Mia studied his face, looking for signs of impulsivity or calculation. Have you thought about how this affects your social life? Your dating prospects? Moving to Portland to be near your children is going to limit your options considerably. Good. Mia, I spent most of my adult life focused on acquiring things, money, status, beautiful women who enhanced my image. None of it made me happy. These kids, getting to be their father, this is the first thing I've ever done that feels genuinely meaningful. And if you meet someone, if you want to get married again, have more children, then I'll make sure whoever I'm with understands that Emma and Lucas come first. Always. That's going to be a difficult conversation for a lot of women. Then they're not the right women for me. Mia was quiet for a long time, processing this information. You really have changed, haven't you? I'm trying to change every day. Some days are better than others, but I'm not the same man who hurt you 3 years ago. No, you're not. Her admission seemed to surprise her. The man I dated would never have moved across the country for anyone. He barely wanted to leave Manhattan for a weekend. The man you dated was terrified of genuine emotional connection. He used control and manipulation to avoid the vulnerability that real love requires. And now I'm learning that vulnerability isn't weakness. That real strength comes from being honest about your feelings and putting other people's needs ahead of your own ego. Your therapist is good. Dr. Patterson is excellent. She's helped me understand that being a good father isn't about being perfect, it's about being present, consistent, and emotionally available. Qualities the old you would have seen as weaknesses. The old me was an idiot. Mia smiled, the first genuinely warm smile she directed at him since their relationship ended. He had his moments. But yes, mostly an idiot. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think there's any chance you could ever forgive me? Really forgive me, not just tolerate me for the children's sake. Mia considered the question seriously. I think I'm starting to forgive you already. Watching you with Emma and Lucas, seeing how patient and gentle you are with them, how you prioritize their needs over your own convenience. It's healing something in me that I didn't even realize was still broken. And us? Is there any possibility that someday? Ryder, don't. I'm not asking for promises or timelines. I'm just asking if it's possible. I don't know. The woman you hurt is still part of me, even though she's not the same woman anymore. But so is the woman who loved you before everything went wrong. I loved you too. I still do. I know. But love wasn't enough before, and it's not enough now. Trust, respect, genuine partnership, those things take time to build. Years, not months. I have time. Do you? What if I never feel safe enough to try again? What if the best we can ever be is co-parents who get along well? Then that will be enough. Because what matters most isn't what I want. It's what's best for Emma and Lucas. And they need parents who can work together, who respect each other, who put their children's well-being first. Even if that means you never get what you really want. Mia, what I really want is to be the father those children deserve and the man you should have had 3 years ago. Everything else is secondary. As they left the coffee shop, Mia found herself cautiously optimistic about their future, not as a romantic couple, but as co-parents who might actually become friends. The man walking beside her was fundamentally different from the one she'd fled from, and while that didn't erase the past, it offered hope for a healthier future. Time would tell if his transformation was permanent, if his commitment to their children would last through the challenges ahead. But for the first time in 3 years, Mia allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, Emma and Lucas might actually have the father they deserved. 18 months after moving to Portland, the call came on a Thursday evening while Ryder was reading quarterly reports in his new Portland office. Emma had fallen at daycare and needed stitches, and Mia was stuck in a client meeting she couldn't leave. Can you pick her up and take her to urgent care? Mia asked, her voice tight with stress. I know it's not your scheduled day, but, of course. I'm already heading to the car. Thank you. I'll meet you at the clinic as soon as I can get away. Ryder found Emma in the daycare director's office, holding a paper towel to her forehead and crying softly. When she saw him, her face lit up with relief. "Daddy, you came." "Of course I came, sweetheart. Let's get you fixed up." At the urgent care clinic, Ryder held Emma's hand while the doctor cleaned and stitched her cut. She was brave, only crying a little when the needle went in, and chattering about how she was going to have a cool scar like a pirate. "You're very brave, Emma," Ryder told her as the doctor finished. "I'm proud of you. Will Mama be proud too?" "Mama will be very proud. And very relieved that you're okay." Mia arrived just as they were finishing the paperwork, still wearing her business attire and looking frazzled from rushing across town. "How is she?" she asked, kneeling down to examine Emma's bandaged forehead. 5 stitches, but no concussion. "She's going to be fine," Ryder reported. "Thank you. For dropping everything, for being here. Where else would I be?" "Mama, Daddy held my hand the whole time," Emma announced proudly. "And he told the doctor I was brave." "You are brave, baby girl. The bravest girl I know." As they walked to their cars, Emma between them holding both their hands, Mia realized how natural this felt. Not romantic, exactly, but like a family. Like 2 adults who had learned to work together for their children's benefit. "Dinner?" Ryder asked. "I was going to cook for Lucas anyway, and Emma probably shouldn't be alone tonight in case of delayed concussion symptoms." "That would be nice." "Thank you." It was the first time Mia had been to Ryder's Portland house, a modest craftsman in a family-friendly neighborhood, completely different from the sterile luxury of his former penthouse. The living room was scattered with toys, children's artwork covered the refrigerator, and everything felt lived in and comfortable. "You've made this place really homey," Mia observed as Ryder cooked pasta while the children played nearby. Emma and Lucas helped decorate. "I figured it should feel like their space too, not just somewhere they visit. It's perfect for them." "I hope so. I'm still learning how to create a family environment instead of a showcase." As they ate dinner together, Ryder watched Mia help Lucas with his spaghetti while Emma told elaborate stories about her day. This was what he'd been missing for the first 3 years of their lives, ordinary family moments that meant everything. "Can we watch a movie?" Emma asked as they finished eating. "It's a school night, sweetheart. Maybe just one short show." They settled on the couch together, Emma curled up against Ryder's side while Lucas claimed Mia's lap. It felt natural, comfortable, like something they'd done 100 times before instead of the first time they'd all been together in Ryder's home. "This is nice," Emma said sleepily as the show ended. "We should do this more often." "We'll see, baby," Mia said diplomatically. But as they drove home an hour later, Mia found herself thinking that Emma was right. It had been nice. More than nice, it had felt like the family she'd once dreamed of having, before everything went wrong. Maybe, with enough time and continued growth, they could build something new from the ruins of what they'd lost. Not the same thing, but something better. Something based on mutual respect, shared responsibility, and the deep love they both felt for Emma and Lucas. Maybe, 2 years after moving to Portland. "Daddy, why don't you live with us?" The question came during one of their Saturday outings, as Ryder was pushing Emma on the swings while Lucas played on the monkey bars. At 4 years old, the twins were more aware of family dynamics, more curious about why their situation was different from their friends. "Because Mama and I aren't married, sweetheart." "But Tommy's parents aren't married and they live together." "Every family is different, Emma. Some parents live together, some live separately, but both love their children very much." "Do you love us very much? More than anything in the world? Do you love Mama?" Ryder glanced over at Mia, who was watching Lucas navigate the playground equipment. "I care about Mama very much. She's a wonderful mother and a good friend. But do you love her?" Emma's 4-year-old persistence was relentless. "It's complicated, sweetheart. That's what grown-ups say when they don't want to answer questions." Ryder laughed despite the discomfort of the conversation. "You're very smart. Yes, I love Mama. But sometimes loving someone means giving them space to be happy. Is Mama happy?" "I think so. Are you happy?" "I'd be happier if we all lived together." "I know, sweetheart. But families come in all different shapes, and what matters most is that you're loved and safe." "We are loved and safe. Very loved and very safe." That evening, Mia called to discuss Emma's questions. "She's been asking me too. About why we don't live together, whether we'll ever get married again." "What do you tell her?" "The truth," that we're working on being good friends and partners and raising them, but that adult relationships are complicated. And Lucas, he's less direct about it, but I can tell he's thinking about it too. His friend Jason's dad moved back in with his mom last year, and Lucas has been asking if that might happen for us. What would you like me to tell them? The truth, that we care about each other, that we're committed to being good co-parents, but that we're not planning to get back together. Are we not? The question slipped out before Ryder could stop it. Mia was quiet for a long moment. Ryder, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to pressure you. Sometimes when we're all together, it feels like we could be a real family. We are a real family, just not the traditional kind. I know. And if this is all we ever are, I'm grateful for it. But Mia, you have to know that I think about it. About us. About whether we could try again. I think about it too. Her admission surprised them both. You do? Sometimes. When I see you with Emma and Lucas, when I watch how patient and gentle you are with them, how you put their needs first. I remember why I fell in love with you in the first place. And then I remember how badly you hurt me. How afraid I was. How I felt like I was disappearing into your idea of who I should be. I'm not that man anymore. I know. I can see that. But trust is fragile, Ryder. It takes years to build and seconds to destroy. What would it take? For you to feel safe enough to try? I don't know. More time, maybe. Proof that this version of you is permanent, not just temporary change motivated by wanting access to the children. How do I prove that? You don't. Time proves it. Consistency proves it. Years of being the man you are now instead of the man you used to be. And if I'm willing to wait, if I'm willing to be patient while you heal, then maybe someday we can have this conversation again. But Ryder, I need you to understand that maybe might be all I can ever offer. And if that's not enough for you, if you need more certainty than that, then we should probably stop having this conversation altogether. Maybe is enough. Maybe is more than I deserve. You deserve happiness, Ryder. Even if it's not with me. My happiness is tied up in Emma and Lucas. Everything else is secondary. Good. Hold on to that. Because they're watching us, learning from us about what relationships should look like. Whatever we do, we need to model healthy dynamics for them. Agreed. As they hung up, both Ryder and Mia found themselves wondering what the future held. The foundation of trust and respect they'd built was solid, but the romantic love that had once existed between them was more complicated. Time would tell if the wounds from their past could heal enough to allow for a new beginning. Time would tell if the man Ryder had become could earn back the heart of the woman he'd lost through his own failures. But for now, it was enough that they were both committed to being the parents Emma and Lucas deserved. Everything else would unfold as it was meant to. 5 years after the hospital meeting, Emma and Lucas were 7 years old now, thriving in school and secure in the love of both their parents. Ryder had been a consistent presence in their lives for 5 years, never missing a school event, always available when they needed him, proving day after day that his transformation was real and permanent. Mia watched from the kitchen window as Ryder helped the twins build a treehouse in their backyard, because 6 months ago, she'd made the decision to sell her duplex and buy a house with enough space for everyone. Ryder had his own bedroom, his own space, but they were finally living as a family. It wasn't a romantic reunion. They slept in separate rooms, maintained separate dating lives, though neither had seriously pursued anyone else, and approached their relationship as partners and co-parents rather than romantic lovers. But it worked. The children were happy, stable, secure in knowing that both their parents would always be there for them. And Mia had found a peace she'd never expected, the ability to share her life with someone she trusted, even if that trust had taken years to rebuild. "Mama, come see," Emma called from the backyard. "Daddy says we can sleep in the treehouse when it's finished. If it's safe and if Mama says it's okay," Ryder corrected, always careful to defer to Mia's authority as their primary parent. "Can we, Mama? Please?" Lucas added his voice to the plea. "We'll see how sturdy Daddy's construction skills are first," Mia replied, joining them in the yard. "My construction skills are excellent. Thank you very much," Ryder protested with mock indignation. "I watched 3 YouTube videos." 3 whole videos? Mia teased. "Well, in that case, you're practically a professional carpenter." The children giggled at their parents' banter, comfortable with the easy affection that had developed between Mia and Ryder over the years. It wasn't romantic love, but it was something equally valuable: deep friendship, mutual respect, and shared commitment to their children's well-being. Will you help us paint it tomorrow? Emma asked Mia. Of course. What colors are you thinking? Rainbow, both children shouted simultaneously. Rainbow it is, Ryder agreed. The most colorful treehouse in the neighborhood. As the sun set over their yard, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Mia reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. 5 years ago, she'd been terrified of letting Ryder into their children's lives. Now, she couldn't imagine raising Emma and Lucas without him. He had kept every promise he'd made: to change, to be consistent, to put the children first, to respect her boundaries and timeline. The narcissistic controller she'd fled from had transformed into a patient, gentle father who earned his place in their lives through daily acts of love and service. Whether they would ever become romantic partners again remained an open question. Some wounds took longer to heal than others, and some kinds of trust required more time to rebuild. But Mia had learned not to focus on what might or might not happen in the future. For now, it was enough that Emma and Lucas had two parents who loved them unconditionally, who worked together effectively, who provided the stability and security every child deserved. Time would tell what the future held for their family. Time would tell if the love that had brought them together originally could be rebuilt on a foundation of mutual respect and genuine change. But in this moment, watching her children laugh with their father while he built them a treehouse, Mia was content to let time reveal its secrets at its own pace. Some stories didn't have neat endings or dramatic conclusions. Some stories were simply ongoing, evolving day by day, built on small moments of love and trust that accumulated over years into something beautiful and lasting. This was one of those stories. If this story of transformation and second chances moved you, please subscribe for more powerful stories about growth and redemption. Share this with someone who believes people can change. Tell me in the comments, how long should someone have to prove they've changed? I read every single one.